Hi friends, this is Krish the Urban Naxal, and today I want to talk about something that we called the Stockholm Syndrome. When you have sympathy for those who have taken over your lives or who are taking over your lives, who have captured you, who are holding you hostage, it's called the Stockholm Syndrome. A guy named Neeraj Chaudhary, well known, he wrote a lot of books, political views. He was there at the time of the British. He used to be impeccably suited, booted, Bengali gentleman. And all his sympathies were for the British. And he believed that the British were actually the liberators of Indians. And British and their culture were the only real culture there was. And we should all follow that culture. He used to wear suit, boot, ties. Every time he went out, even if he went out for getting the newspaper, he was always suited, booted. Absolutely perfect English, grammatical. He wrote long, heavy sentences, and he judged the Indians very harshly in his books and judged the British very favorably. So, Neeraj Chaudhary. Within my own family, there used to be a gentleman, elderly gentleman. He was very Indian. He was as Indian could get. He wore a dhoti. But he would say, we are all, he used to use the word chorna dik rao. Chorna dik rao, the children of thieves. Like a thief fucked your mother. Like, we are all bastards. Indians, we are all bastards. You know, when the British were there, those were the good old days. This is back in the 80s and 90s. And a lot of people had this kind of sympathies. The good old days before the British went. The British Raj was good. We Indians are not capable of ruling ourselves. Our rule has been a misrule. India has not managed to rule herself properly. You know, we are basically crooks. This was the sympathy. This was the sentiment. Today, is it relevant? I don't want to talk about the political scenario. I don't want to talk about BJP and its views on हमारे 70 साल में हमने कुछ नहीं किया है and all that. I don't want to talk about all that. But I do want to talk about the common man. I want to talk about you and me and where do our sympathies lie. Because many of us, we have the Stockholm Syndrome. Our sympathies are not for ourselves. Our sympathies are for those who hold us hostage. Our sympathies are for those who oppress us, our oppressors. We have sympathy for them. We wish that they do well, and whereas we suspect our own people, our own types. I want to talk about that. See guys, what is the current scenario? Where do our interests lie? And by our interests, I mean we the common people. So I'm not talking about only the people in the chawls. I'm not talking about only the poor. I'm not talking about people who are struggling to make a living, running rickshaws and driving taxis. I'm talking about you and I, the common man. So what is you and I, the common man? You and I, the common man, we are not overprivileged. We are not coming from great power. We are not coming from undue influence. We don't have the backing of huge politicians. We the people of India. Now, I want to talk about where our sympathies lie. Do our sympathies lie with us? Or do our sympathies lie with someone else or something else? So what is this something else? We don't have the British Raj. We don't have something as prominent as the British Raj. It is difficult to unite. It is difficult to point out. When there were the Goras, we could point them out and say these are the Goras. And it was easy to point out someone who had sympathy for the Goras by the way they talked, by the language they spoke, by the suits and boots they wore. Today it's more difficult. We can't do that. It's not so easy. But our oppressors who are our oppressors. Now guys, when you hear oppressors from me, you're going to say, urban Naxal sala, aa gaya auqat pe. Because this is the language of, you may say, the people. Or you may say class war. You may actually say, chal, dekh, ye class war karwane ko nikal pada hai. He is talking class war language. He is talking urban Naxal language. You may say that. I'm not going to prevent you from saying that. You may say Maoist, dekho, Maoist, Maowadi, communist, aa gaya. So at this point of time, maybe your alarm bells are ringing, and I'm okay with that. Apply your mind. Think about it. I'm not going to deny, or I'm not going to say, no, I'm not a Maoist, I'm this, I'm that, I don't come from this philosophy, I don't come from that philosophy. I come from a socialist philosophy. But listen, think, understand. Apply your mind. Apply your mind to who you are, who we are, who I am. What is your situation? What is your context? So guys, oppressors, who in this present context are the oppressors, and who in this present context are the oppressed? Apply your mind. I'm going to tell you what I think, but you need not agree with me. Apply your mind. We are oppressed, and we are potentially oppressed, and we are at the verge of, and some of us are already under oppression, already under the wheels. Some of us have already been thrown under the bus. Some of us will get thrown under the bus, will get pulled under the bus. What is this? What is this under the bus? What is this bus I speak of? Let me explain this by first explaining how things have been working. The word disruptive has turned into a good thing. It wasn't. The word disruptive didn't mean something good. The word disruptive meant something bad for people. Generally, you don't want disruptive. You don't want people to, for example, you don't want to have a disrupted marriage. You don't want to have a disrupted career. You don't want your childhood to be disrupted. You don't want your life to be disrupted. But in the present economic context, when we speak of disruptive technology or a disruptive way of doing business, we are generally speaking about a good thing. Things are promoted like that. Startup entrepreneurs will say this is a very disruptive idea. Or angel investors will say, okay, this is a disruptive idea. This can disrupt the market. So you think of disruptive as something good. Is it good? It's subjective. It's subjective. I have been the beneficiary of disruptive technologies and disruptive ways of doing business. I have been the beneficiary. I have benefited from it. I have been a participant in that. So let me explain what is disruptive, and then let us try to figure out whether is it pro common man. See, on the one side we keep talking about creating jobs, employment generation, 5 crore jobs, 50 crore jobs will be created and all that kind of thing. Promises are made. And everybody looks at job creation as generally a good thing. Nobody says job deletion is a good thing. But what is happening is we are ourselves participants in job deletion, in destruction of jobs. Now, every time a new technology comes in, the earning capacity of the technology is how many jobs it may destroy, how many jobs it will disrupt, how much of the usual markets, industries will it disrupt and destroy. That's the measure of its potential for success. Let me explain how this disruptive thing got going and how it operates. So I'm going to tell you about how it happened in my lifetime. When I was a young boy, you had to be a genius in school, in college, to learn computers. So they used to take an IQ test for people who wanted to learn computers. And I didn't even make the cut. So I didn't learn computers in school and college. But after college, I came to Mumbai, and I started using computers. By then computers, they weren't running in times of India, in the year 1989. They weren't using Windows, but they were using softwares which were customarily written for Times organization. And these softwares used to enable you to do word processing. So if you guys have MS Word, you used MS Word, it was a very slow, very bad version of MS Word. That is how I would describe it. You could do edits, you could do cut paste, copy paste, mass deletion, and everything was not on a Windows platform, it was on a DOS platform, and then you had to save the file. And sometimes very ordinary small text files would take a very long time to save. Now this was already disrupting something. What was it disrupting? It was disrupting the typewriter based industry. There was an industry of people who used to sit and earn their livelihood typing, tuck, 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 near courts, etc. They used to sit and type. Tuck, 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 tuck. They used to type out applications. They used to type out letters. I have myself gone and had letters typed out in an area called Bhadrakali, near Bhadrakali temple in Ahmedabad. It was where the courts were situated, civil court was situated there. So people used to type out, various things. Back in office in Times of India, I have myself used the typewriter. I learned to use the typewriter first. But very soon I transitioned to the computer, and the computer was a quantum leap over the typewriter. And it was going to put all these guys, all these typewriter institutes. Back in 1987, 88, I used to go to a typewriter institute I took a few lessons in order to learn how to type. Typewriter institutes went out. They were closed very soon. One of my uncles made his entire livelihood, and it was a good livelihood. He was a prosperous man. His entire livelihood by running typewriter institutes. Typewriter institutes got blown out. By around 1985 or so, typewriter institutes were out. Sometime around that time, public call officers, PCOs, came into existence. I don't remember exactly when that was, but somewhere in the 80s and 90s, there were PCOs. Not just places where you put a coin. You went to this little office and they would place an ISD call or an STD call for you, and then you paid for the STD or ISD call, and then you went home. So there used to be public call officers, PCOs, and PCOs used to be combined with Xerox. So you still have PCO Xerox. That's how it was written, PCO Xerox. It came, and I think in the early 2000s or even late 1990s, they were gone. They were gone because mobiles came in. So the PCO guys, the guys who ran PCOs, got out. Now, these may seem like small things. There were bigger things happening. Let me give you an instance of something which many of you will relate with. The textile mills. Mumbai used to be a city of textile mills. And it used to be a city of industrial estates. There were many industrial estates in Mumbai. Around Mumbai also. And the textile mills, now you may say, textile mills, they were run by corrupt mill owners and all that. Yes, correct. They were run by corrupt mill owners. They were run by mill owners who were prevented from siphoning off money, and yet they managed to siphon off money out of the mills, which were their own concerns. So why shouldn't they siphon off? Well, the way business was structured back then, you had permanent employment. You had mill workers depending on these people. There were chawls around the mills where people lived. And then a disruptive technology came along. It was called power looms. What were power looms? Earlier you had hand looms. Hand looms were people weaving by using the hand shuttle. Okay, just look it up. there is a handloom technology which is quite ancient. Now the same handloom technology could be powered by machines. So the shuttle would move faster. Cut, 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 cut. You could do more production. So handlooms converted to power looms. And in Bhiwandi, outskirts of Mumbai, there was this vast number of power looms which came up. Ordinary people who used to be handloom owners became power loom owners overnight. And the power loom industry defeated the textile mill industry in terms of economics, and they were thrown out. They could not compete. Mills could not compete. There were a lot of conspiracy theories also that the same mill owners were investing money by proxy in power looms. Maybe so, I don't know. A large class of people, mill workers, were thrown out of employment. Is it a bad thing? Didn't seem like that at that time. Didn't seem like that, or maybe it was a bad thing. I don't know. I'm not going to take an opinion on, I'm not going to take a stand on that. But it happened. It was a reality. So the mill industry, mills basically collapsed. Textile mills collapsed. Earlier there were public sector bodies, made for keeping the textile mills alive, for reviving them. There were revival plans. Or the government just gave up those revival plans. The mill sector collapsed. So you had power loom in Bhiwandi and it just collapsed. It collapsed the textile sector. The way of doing business changed. Was it a bad thing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You tell me. A lot of people made their fortunes in those days in this way. Then there was this printing industry revolution. I was part of that printing industry revolution. When I came into the industry, we used to engage people for, they used to be called cut paste artists. People used to go to college in JJ School of Arts, for example. They would go and learn how to make page design. Okay, they learned the various things of manually doing page design, stick it, paste it, by the technology of that time. So they were called the cut paste artists. I used to make pages for magazines, or even in Times of India we had cut paste artists, and I used to stand there and do it, with them. As late as 1992 or so, I used to be standing next to a cut paste artist in Midday newspaper, guiding them on the last finishing touches of the page, and then the page would go for printing. Large numbers of cut paste artists were involved. They were thrown out. Why? Because people like myself, we learned to make the pages on computers. So I would have displaced maybe 20, 30, 40 cut paste artists in my lifetime. And I made a good profit on that. I made a very good profit by not depending on cut paste artists, because their livelihood became my livelihood. Then there were other kinds of artisans in the printing industry. They got thrown out of the jobs. All those jobs accumulated to one person, me. I used to do it. I became a designer. I did not need a designer because of the way computer technology evolved. And then at one point of time, I was myself phased out by competition, because some other economic and technological changes happened where I was not able to compete. And people like me were also thrown out by competition. So this is how disruptive technologies work. When Ola and Uber came, Kali Pili taxi guys got thrown out. They got disrupted. When the IT sector came in and the BPO sector came in and call centers came in to India, we disrupted jobs from abroad. We took away jobs from abroad. It was a good thing. It was considered a great thing, fantastic thing. It was like, hey, we are pulling all the jobs from America, and we are able to do it cheaper, we are able to competitively deliver. But it also happens to India. Our jobs get taken away by someone else, by somewhere else, by China. Our manufacturing jobs have gone off to China. Now, these are the forces. There are corporates, there is AI, artificial intelligence. They are taking away our jobs. Now the thing is, where are our sympathies? Do we sympathize with corporates? Do we sympathize with their power to make indecent amount of investments? Like, oh, we are allocating 30,000 crore investment to this and it's going to be very disruptive and all that. Now, where are our sympathies? Are our sympathies towards those who are earning tens of thousands of crores and accumulating all the power in their hands? Or do we have sympathy for the common man who is being displaced? That's us, you and me. That is a question, and that decides what we do next. I am Krish, the Urban Naxal. Jai Maharashtra, Jai Hind.